Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Speakeasy HR. All right. Welcome, everybody. I am your host, David Noe, the producer, the editor of this show. This is sponsored by Payroll Partners. You can elevate your HR and payroll experience with us. So if you are in the market for a potential new payroll and HR vendor, please reach out. You don't have to pick between good technology and service. With Payroll Partners, you can get the best of both worlds. So we have a great HCM software, dedicated support. So please make sure to check us out. The QR code is there to check out Payroll Partners. I have a special guest with me today. He is one of my dear friends that we have known each other for a while. Gary, welcome to Speakeasy HR.
Thanks, David. Glad to be here. I'm honored.
Yeah, I am. I'm excited to get into this topic. And when I reached out to you about, I don't know when it was, a few months ago, I said, Gary, bring us a topic that really hits home to you. So what you like to talk about. So every guest that does come on, I let them pick the topic. So what is amazing to me is that people enjoy figuring out, really what they want to come on and talk about. And so when you brought up this topic, I was super excited to bring it on. So if you are watching live, please comment in the chat section where you are watching it live, and want to make sure that people can engage with us. This is going to also be recorded on Spotify. You can also follow on YouTube, where all of the episodes will be. So make sure to follow on Spotify and YouTube, and making sure that you obviously watch or listen to any of the other episodes with some amazing topics. And what I'm excited about, obviously having Gary on, but I have several guests every month up until next spring. So brand new guests every show. And but Gary, let's get to it. Let me bring up your first. Let's go with this. I don't know if I've got the chat on. So if we don't have a number, we'll pick a number, or you can pick a number. So Gary, just introduce yourself, give us some background on your experience, and we'll go from there.
Absolutely. Thanks, David. I am with an organization called MRA, the Employers Association. We are a nonprofit HR, full-service HR consulting firm, been around 125 years. I am a learning and development instructor, do a lot of OD work for them. My background started way back when. I won't tell you right now when it started. Okay, so but got a lot of entrepreneurial experience. I owned a staffing company for about 10 years, but I've been really in sort of the L&D space for the last 15 to 20 years. That's a little bit about me. I'm from Columbus, Ohio, graduated from Franklin University, currently enrolled in the master's program at the University of Louisville. So I'm just glad to be here to talk about something that's really I'm very passionate about, and that is ageism in the workplace, and what are the conceptions and misconceptions, and how do we handle it right in the workplace, and what's the effect?
Yeah, and I changed my background, Gary. If you can see, call me old fashioned. It's a pillow of mine. So I thought that kind of fit the topic today with ageism in the workforce. So, which obviously old fashions we can talk about, and bourbon and some of the other non-HR topics. But it's a really interesting topic that people that just aren't even HR that work in the workforce with different generations, I feel like can learn from this topic and really figure out like how they can, successfully be in their organization, no matter what their age is, no matter where they're at in their career. And so I'm excited to get into this a little bit. So before we do, I do like to start with this envelope icebreaker, and I've got all of the questions I did give you. So there's no like surprise questions in here. So if you have a lucky number, 1 through 15.
13.
13. Okay. Yeah, the chat is on, and I haven't seen any come through yet, but again, this platform changed a little bit on me last week, so I'm gonna go. You said 13.
Yep.
Okay, 13. I did switch them around a little bit, so let's see which. Ooh, this is a really good one. What brings you the most happiest in your life right now? Most happiest. What brings you the most
Well, it's
happiest in your life right now?
yeah. I mean, there's so many things, right? There's the personal side of it. There's the family side of it.
Yeah,
But let's sort of stick with more on the business side of it, right?
yeah,
And I think probably what gives me those happiness right now is an opportunity that MRA has given me to really sort of be the best I can be every day, to lean into my age and my experiences, and help our internal employees develop through the experiences that I have, and then being able to share my experiences with the people. I mean, I work with a multitude of companies, multitude of individuals in the classroom on a daily and a weekly basis. So what brings me joy is just seeing the lights come on in the classroom as I'm transferring knowledge and experience to them. So that's sort of on the business side of it. So I'll just leave it there.
yeah, yeah. No, that's great. And I when we first met, gosh, I don't know how many years ago it was. It was during COVID. I was with my previous employer,
Yeah,
and I
it
reached
was
out.
pre-COVID.
It was pre-COVID.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was
yeah,
pre-COVID because we were doing in-person manager training, and I was with another organization that we felt that it was very valuable to train our managers and get them to a better place in their role. So we had several sessions,
yeah,
and then at that point, I felt like you really were doing a really good job at connecting with those folks that I couldn't personally connect with as the HR director. So you came in and just, I think, really made a big impact. And then we kept in touch. We grabbed lunch, and we've kept in touch. We work with some folks at the Northern Kentucky Chamber now, which you're going to be at Kentucky SHRM next week. Is that
yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yes, booth 204, I think, close to you. Yeah,
204.
yeah,
Yeah. We're going to be at 205. So if anybody is going to be at the Kentucky SHRM conference next week, stop by and meet myself. We'll have a few other folks from my team as well, from payroll partners at the Kentucky SHRM conference in Louisville. Is that how you say it? Louisville?
Louisville, yes,
Louisville.
Louisville,
And then you'll be at 204. So we'll be right there.
yes,
So if
yeah, yeah,
anybody's going to the Kentucky SHRM conference, comment, chat on here, and I know several other people that we are, connected with on some HR level will be there. So
absolutely. It's a great event.
yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah.
I think there's some interesting keynote speakers. Steve
Hmm.
Brown being one of them from the Roses. So excited to be there and be a part of it. I've never been to a SHRM conference. I've been in HR for over 15 years, and I've never been to a SHRM conference. So shame on me, I guess. But my organizations I've been with really didn't make it a huge focus and piece of our conference schedule. And now I'm with a company that values that, and I'm excited to be there.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, I've been there a few times, presented a few times. In my last year, I presented one on talent development, succession planning.
yeah,
And prior to joining ERA MRA back around 2011, I was sort of in the wellness space.
okay,
I'm a certified health and wellness and nutrition coach. So I did a couple of programs on wellness in the workplace. So it's a great learning environment and
yeah,
great connections also.
yeah. No, it'll be a great
Yeah,
great conference. So, um, all right, well, let's get into this topic,
sure.
Gary, because I think there's a lot to unravel here, and you have a really good handout that you shared with me. That obviously anybody watching this, either on demand later or live, we'll make sure at the end of this to give you a way to get this handout from Gary, because it's pages of information from an ageism standpoint that I think can really help everybody learn about the topic. So, Gary, what is ageism? What's the definition of this? And How
Well,
can you explain it?
I mean, it's a form of discrimination, right? Even though, the Title VII of Civil Rights Act in 1964, defines, 40 or over, right, as an age group that we should not discriminate on. But when you look at the definition, and then apologize, but I'm going to read the definition that I wrote. Ageism is a form of discrimination or prejudice against individuals or a group based on their age. It can manifest itself in various contexts, such as workplace, healthcare, media representation, or social interaction. Ageism typically encompasses negative stereotypes, assumptions, and attitudes towards older adults. But I have this highlighted, but it also can affect younger individuals. And, from my experience working with a very diversified uh, student base, for lack of a better word, where I work with group leads, supervisors, middle managers, senior managers, many times it comes into conversation with the younger managers saying, I don't get taken seriously, right? As a
Yep.
younger manager, somebody that's maybe 25 to 35 years old. And how does that affect them? How does that affect their confidence, right?
Right.
When they're always being told by the person that is 55 or 60 years old that, when you grow up, you can have a seat at the table, right? Go sit with the little kids.
Yeah.
But I think normally we think of ageism as something that affects the older population, and it does.
Yeah.
And also, I have a lot of really good colleagues and friends that are females in the workplace, and they're in probably 50 to 65 years old, right?
Yep.
And to hear them say it, the ageism even is more pronounced for the females that are in that age bracket. So,
Right.
it's stereotyping, right? That process, stereotyping people based on their age. Like, older people cannot grasp new technologies, or have a hard time keeping up with technologies,
Oh yeah.
or younger people don't have the experience that they need, right? Yet.
Yeah.
It can manifest itself, in hiring practices, right? Devaluing people of different ages. And, it can have, and I've seen this happen many times, that people just sort of get beat down sometimes, and it
Yep.
does affect their mental health, right? And they start internalizing their failures. It's nothing that they do or nothing that they know. It's just they start, I don't know, it's learned helplessness, if you will, right?
Yeah.
And they get to a certain point, regardless of the age, right? So we need to sort of take those two things out of it, old or young, and they really start losing confidence in themselves, right? Or trust in themselves. And then that manifests itself in how they present themselves and how they
Yeah.
communicate with other people. So it's something that, which is really strange, David, that it's to my surprise, people don't really talk about it too much, right?
Right.
We talk about racism and,
Yep.
those things in the workplace, and I mean, obviously, it's serious topics, but we just sort of neglect this, or just sort of, like, I don't know, brush it under the rug. But I think it needs to be brought to the surface. As a
Yeah.
matter of fact, which is really interesting, and I think everybody will get maybe a little bit of a sarcastic chuckle at this, but I presented to do this program at Kentucky SHRM this year, right? To talk about this, and they didn't accept it. So,
Yeah.
so
Well,
it's like, oh wow, well, we will fight this battle in other ways.
yeah, you bring up a good point, because I had a couple guests prior. It was Scott McGowan that talked about mental health, and
Yeah.
ageism wasn't talked about, but it really is like a big factor in that, because the older individuals working, they might work with an individual that's much younger than them, and then
Yep.
if there is a promotion for that younger person that is now managing that older person, how does that older person really view that? Like, if they feel like they should be getting that promotion, or if they should, so it can just change the dynamic of culture and a
Mhm.
team environment, right? Like,
Oh yeah.
so it's a bigger topic, and that's too bad, unfortunately, that is the way it's being handled right now, because I feel like it should be a topic when you're training your managers and you're training your staff, just like discrimination, harassment. Ageism is maybe talked about a little bit, but it may not be talked about enough. And to bring awareness to that to people, whether they're younger or older in the workforce, because we have what, 5 generations working together,
Yes.
like
At
it's
least 4. Yep.
yeah,
So
and the amount of people that are working longer now, that either are working part-time, they don't want to retire, they need to work financially because of the last 5 years, and maybe they just lost a lot of money, I don't know. So the whole workforce is shifting, and so ageism is a really important topic. So it's like, if people don't really understand what it is, then they're either going to not look at it as a priority, to really figure out like how they should be approaching their team, their managers, and really make it just as important as any other piece of harassment, because it's just not brought up. When you hear harassment, okay, someone's like, wow, that's important, but when they hear ageism, like
yeah.
it doesn't sound the same, and that people may not take it as serious.
Yeah. And
you
I
know
mean, just the fact that people ignore it is a form of ageism. They're not
yep.
willing to talk about it or accept it, or they laugh it off, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
And I think that the dynamics of the age is also, David, is that, so when I entered the workforce, and my first professional job was in like 1980. I graduated college in 76, but it was interesting. I was able to really sort of escalate my career path very quickly. So I didn't get stuck in that where younger people, in my view, where younger people are today, right?
What happens when employees behave badly? Boy, we could do an entire TV show, maybe a Netflix special on that. Well, Ryan and I sat down and recorded episodes for FAMA, and we asked practitioners, give us your most outrageous story. The sales leader that brings cocaine to work, whatever. Just bring us the outrageous, and it is funny. So if you need a laugh, which we all do from time to time, search for workplace misconduct wherever you get your podcast, and you'll find it. And trust me, you will laugh and cry, but you'll definitely laugh. All right. Thank you.
At 31 years old, I was an AVP for Dun & Bradstreet Corporation, because most of the old white guys who at that point, old was 55 years old, right?
Yeah.
They were retiring. And so there was this rapid, and again, it could have been the baby boomer thing going on demographically and so forth. But
Yeah.
I quickly earned a seat at that table in my early years. But now with people working longer, right, and working longer more successfully, thank goodness,
Yeah.
and combating this ageism thing on their own, with certain methodologies, I think it's a challenge for the younger people to really sort of break through that glass ceiling, right? In a
Yeah.
sense that, people that are in their 40s, if they're aspiring to be that, at that C level, if that's, at that point, at 40 years old, they're hitting an ageism issue.
Yeah.
Which is strange, but anyway.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So the key aspects of ageism, I know you shared this document with me, so
Yeah.
I'm trying to follow along as
Yeah.
you're bringing stuff up. So, the 4 key aspects of ageism, just so people understand, what would you say about those 4 aspects? You've got them all laid out.
Yeah. I mean,
You talk about discrimination.
the 4 aspects are just purely stereotyping people, right?
Yep.
Based on their age, assuming that they can't keep up with technology because of age, or they don't have the experience because of the youngerness of them. So, putting stereotypes on people just purely because of their age. Another thing which is interesting is, I think we need to look at our hiring practices, and also embedded in the white paper that I'll share with people. It talks about the language we use in our promotions of positions, right? Experience needed. Well, what does that do? That, right? or mature individuals, right?
Right.
What does that do? Or we need people with high energy. What does that say? I mean, those are all things that people put in there that are code words, right? In a
Yep.
sense. I mean, I don't think it's intentional, but those words sort of like turn people off, right? So I think that process of hiring practices or social exclusion in organizations. I have a lot of members. We call our customers members, but there's a lot of members out there, and I'm sure people that are listening in, they have these young professional organizations within their companies,
Right.
and they do certain things that may be perceived as preferential, right?
Right.
Learning opportunities, classes, and so forth. And I'm thinking, okay, I think that's good, but the employee resource group is just not the young people. It's the people that have all kind of diversities, right? From age to sexual preference, whatever it is, ethnicity. I think we need to be inclusive, right, and not exclude people. I'm very gifted at MRA because I work with a lot of really young people, right? And my boss is probably in her mid 40s. My colleagues, my peers are all early 40s, and I think they embrace my age, right? And they lean into me as a mentor. I lean into them as a mentor, right? From a technology standpoint. It's, I don't feel like I am old by any means because of how they treat me, right? So a lot of it is how they perceive me and my value. And, I look at myself as the elder statesman, and I think, and I'm not looking for any preferential treatment because of that, but I think they, Matt Deavy, who's my colleague, is the lead. He jokingly always calls me as, an American treasure, right? That kind of type of thing. So, I'll take the compliments where I get them. But anyway, I just, I think.
Well, I'm sure anybody watching cannot guess your age, so we'll just put that out there because you told me, and I was like, "Man, what's your secret?" I know you go to the gym. I see you at the gym, so that's part of it.
Yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit towards the end. So it's a mindset, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, it's those are the aspects, and I think when you look at, and as you review the white paper that I'll send you, there's really sort of three other main areas, and that is, as an organization, right? If you do have a seat at the table and you do have some authority, right, to make an impact, right, in the organization, right. I think the organization has to do some things, and I, there's about 10 different things here that I've drafted, but just recognizing that there's going to be bias, right? Recognizing there are bias, and how and you have to bring those things to the surface. That's plain and simple.
How do you combat with bias when it comes to ageism? Because I feel like when people meet each other for the first time, and I look at it when we hire internally, and if we're bringing in somebody that I don't personally know, and we have a small team, we've got 40 employees, so we all work very well together internally as small groups. We're not virtual. We're not all over the country. We're in one office, right? So,
right.
When you have a small company, small business, and you are working with those people very closely every day, how can people get over that bias of like, hey, this is our team collaboration process to get to know each other, and whether it's team building exercises, because I feel like some people might go into a job, and if they're working with people that are older or younger than them, they might have this mindset of like, oh, this person's not going to catch on, or this person is in their early working years, and how determined and hard working are they going to be based on what people feel of the next working generation, right? So how do people get over that bias? Is there some suggestions that you have for that?
I mean, there's a lot of, in my white paper references, but there's a lot of just good reading material out there.
Yeah.
right? There's some strategies on that, but I think creating cross-functional based on age
Yeah.
teams, right?
Yeah.
Being very proactive and intentional of putting people together that are of different ages and different backgrounds, and having each group sort of share and lean into their experiences,
Yeah.
whether it's their recent experience, right, and newer experiences, and how they view the workplace, or people that are my age, the lifelong experiences, right, and what did I do, what mistakes did I make, so it becomes sort of I think mentoring is a good thing to do.
Yeah.
And I think reverse mentoring, right? I have a couple of people that I work with that they are my mentors, and they're 20, 30 years younger than me,
Yeah.
because I need them to sort of center me, right? And then I mentor people that are younger than me, and I'm talking about people in their 50s, right? That because I'm not going to disclose yet how old I am, but I mean, I work with people that are considerably younger than me.
Right.
Um, I really don't know too many people, unfortunately, right, that are older than me that I could use as mentors, work mentors, right? Maybe
Right.
life mentors,
Yep.
right? But I think in an organization, if we can have sort of cross-functional teams regarding ages, right? And
Yeah.
whenever we're working on projects where we're pulling people together, I think that immediately, don't focus on the age, don't focus on the person, focus on the experiences, right?
Yeah.
And I think if we start talking about our experiences and how they relate and how they layer onto each other,
Yeah.
I think those biases really break down. I'm always challenged. We all have unconscious bias, right? And when I walk into a classroom and there's maybe 20 or 30 people in the classroom, and vast majority of the time, probably 99% of the time, I'm the oldest person there, right? And I know when I'm walking in and they're coming into the classroom, as I did with you at your old company, David, I know people are judging me,
Yeah.
right? And they're saying, what does this guy have to offer, right? And I am, in a sense, unconsciously probably judging them too,
Yeah.
right? And so, we have to understand that we all have value, right? We may be coming from different places, we may have different roles, but we all have value that we can contribute to the conversation. And I have to make an intentional effort to make a connection, right, with those individuals. And I think the people that are younger than me have to make an intentional effort to connect with people that are older than them, because there's so much value in those connections.
Well, and to go back to your point about the mentor, that can be done by any organization, right? Like that
Oh
doesn't
yeah,
have to be a company that's got 1,000 employees. It could be a company of 10, 20, 30 employees. If you have a mentor program that can really help new hires and new employees acclimate themselves to the organization and the culture and the individuals they work with, whether
mm-hmm.
it's in their different work groups and whatnot, like that can be a great way to get over that potential bias when it comes to ageism and working with people of different generations. And so, I mean, every organization has to figure out like the best way to approach that.
Right.
But I think that's a great talking point and a takeaway for people watching. It's easy to say, oh, we're going to onboard people and get them acclimated to the company, but how do you mentor the new hires, and how do you take those folks into the company and help them feel like they can make an impact no matter their age? So
Yeah, it's almost like a buddy system. I
yeah,
think I think the boss should never be the mentor. By the way,
yeah, that's a good point.
yeah, it's too close of a relationship. I think it should be somebody outside of even the department, if possible.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
So going into the personal side of this topic, how to
okay.
personally combat ageism, that does that depend on your age, or can that be done by anybody at any time because of where someone's at in their career, and if they are a senior level individual, or someone coming right out of the workforce and they're 25, how
I think it is. I think it may be a little bit more challenging for somebody that's a little bit older, right?
Yeah.
And I think, when you get a chance to look at the white paper, people out there in the audience, you'll see, how can you personally combat it inside the company, right? Again, recognize your own bias, learn about ageism and the effect of ageism. I think that is really key to, you may not be a decision maker in the company, but whatever you can learn about ageism and what the bias are towards them,
Yep.
the more equipped you are to really sort of be able to speak up intelligently about the subject, right? And I think one of the things that that happens, and people are really sort of unprepared to deal with it, is when you hear a comment about age, right? Regardless, right? Or when you hear a joke about age, regardless if it's older or younger, just being able to, sort of speak up, right?
Right.
And not, particularly if it's directed towards you, but even if it's directed to somebody not you, right? Sort of not protecting, but being that stepping up for the victim of it, if you will.
Right.
I think is important to develop those strategies. And then, as a company, I think you need to break down the generalizations.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of companies just have these general assumptions that, if you're not at the C-suite by the time you're 50 years old, sorry, are you disposable at that time, or do you still have value to the organization?
Yeah.
Or generalizations about people that are younger, people that are older. I think there's a lot of things that you can personally do within the company to try to combat it. I think the organization, the first part of the white paper is more organizational structures to combat ageism. Some of it is legal in a sense too, right? It's the right thing to do from a legal standpoint. But then, coming up with some strategies that if you are seeing it, what to do with it, right? Or if you are a target of it, what are you supposed to do with it?
Yeah.
And a lot of times, David, it is, it's in intent versus impact, right? The intent, you have to use my word is positive intent. You assume that the person doesn't mean bad by saying these things, right? And, make people think it's sort of a light thing to say about somebody's age, regardless of young or old. But, the impact that it has, right? Getting back to some of those consequences of, how does it affect a person psychologically?
Mm-hmm.
How does it affect their self-esteem? How does it affect their confidence? How does it affect their ability to take calculated risks, right?
Yep.
And to stretch in the workplace. If you think you're constantly being judged because of that age issue, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it is some things we can do to try to combat it.
I am catching on LinkedIn, there are some comments and questions, so I am following that, Gary.
Okay, good.
There was a question that came in that I wanted to bring up from Lucy Ellis. She said, can you please speak more to the benefits of reverse mentoring as experienced by you?
Oh, my goodness. We only have half an hour, but I think, when I connect with people that are younger than me, and Lucy, my reverse mentors are people that are probably age-wise, probably late 20s to early 30s. Okay. Because I want to really lean into I want to understand a little bit about what motivates them, first of all, right? That's what I do. But I lean into them for cultural things that are going on, right? To keep myself current and conversational regarding cultural and societal things that I need to know. What makes them tick? What motivates that younger generation? So I can be a better leader for them, right? If I'm ever put in a position. Technology.
So is that something that you just go to certain individuals and ask, or is there
we just have conversations?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it comes up in conversations, right?
Okay.
And I find it really valuable because certain things that I may ask,
Right.
It's easy, believe it or not, it's easier for me to ask those questions to somebody that is considerably younger than me than somebody that is my generation.
That
Don't know
makes
why.
sense.
Don't know why. So I try to lean into them just to learn what makes them tick, right? Helps me.
So do you just go out and ask them specific questions about what makes them tick so that next time when you
Yeah.
talk to
Or
somebody and they know about technology way more than you do, right? Like I look at my personal situation, let's say my mom or somebody that I I interact with maybe on a personal level or a professional level, and I may know way more about technology than they do. So like do you ask them like certain
sure.
questions to know what ticks, or
Yeah.
how do you approach
No,
that?
well, I mean, I am leaning heavily into AI.
Okay.
And I will ask those questions. Surprisingly, sometimes I know a little bit more than they do, which is okay, right?
Yeah.
But I think I lean into them and saying, here's what I'm trying to do. Am I looking at this the right way, right? How do I reach my audience? How Probably from a mentoring standpoint, David, because I am in the classroom, right, and I am teaching people of their age, right. So I
Right.
have a few people that that I really value their opinion. They're learning and development professionals. They're just coming into the field. They have they have the newest technologies on learning methodologies and modalities. So
Yeah.
I lean into them and say, okay, am I doing the right thing in the classroom to connect with my audience, right?
Yeah.
As it relates to that younger generation. But I have to be really sort of not careful. Careful is the wrong word, but I have to understand that my message has to appeal to all ages,
Right.
right? But I want the right, comments, and be connected with people at that younger age. So I have a couple people that is interesting. They were students of mine who I
Okay.
really admired where they were in their lives, right? And I lean into them for just, am I doing the right things, right?
Right. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
from their perspective, they haven't lived my life,
yeah.
so they don't have the gift of hindsight, right?
Right.
That's the gift that I can give people. But I think just from a standpoint of, you know, should I be doing something a little bit different?
So is that something that you do personally, or is that more of a company level?
Personal,
Okay. Because
yeah.
I'd be curious how many people, and maybe if people are watching that are looking for a new job,
Mhm.
asking in interviews about how mentoring is approached, or how do you connect with new hires, and how do you connect with individuals,
Absolutely.
and like reverse mentoring is not something that I hear a lot about.
Mhm.
It's I'm curious that if people are watching or listening to this, later on the Spotify recording, and you think about reverse mentoring or just mentoring in your company, are you a mentor? Do you get mentored, or is there any kind of access to that from a collaboration standpoint? Because that might really help just the overall ageism within that workforce. So if that's something that you're just doing personally, that's an incredible way to not only get feedback from individuals that are in different parts of their career, just to help yourself and help them, because that's a great gift that you've got. I don't think a lot of people have that.
Yeah, and you have to be, as an older person, you have to be very open-minded and also very vulnerable, right? Which is okay to say, look, what can I do that's different? What can I do that's better? How can I
Right.
improve
Exactly.
myself, right? And speaking to somebody that is of a, two generations different than I am, you have to be willing to listen, to understand, right? And be very
Right.
vulnerable to, you know, am I connecting, right? And in my role, I have to connect,
Right.
and I had to connect with a broad range of individuals, not only age, but people that come from the factory floor, right?
Yep.
To the C-suite. So I have to be really adaptable And the only way I can learn to be adaptable is to ask people, what can I do better?
Right. So what kind of advice would you give somebody that, let's say, is in their 20s, 30s, and it may be the same advice, it may be the same actual advice for me, who I'm in my 40s. So what kind of advice would you give somebody when it comes to ageism, and how can they make it more aware or bring more awareness to themselves in their day-to-day lives when it comes to working with folks? What kind of advice would you give people?
More on the personal side, David, more just like, how does one prevent being a victim of ageism? Is that what you're looking for?
Well,
Type,
if somebody doesn't have the reverse mentoring opportunity or a mentorship program within their organization,
the personal strategies, right?
yeah, personal strategies. What would be your main advice on that?
Regardless of age, continue to look for opportunities, right, to grow.
Yeah.
For personal growth and professional growth, look for opportunities within your organization, within your circle of friends. Step up and volunteer to do things that may be a stretch for you.
Yeah.
Right. I think those are things. Again, I think identifying sort of your unique skills, right? What is your personal value proposition? What is your brand, right? How do you speak to your brand regardless of age? Just have a, try to develop a strong sense of personal identity, right? Understand who you are, understand what makes you tick, understand your skills, and being able to communicate those to individuals, right? I think is a good starting point.
Yeah.
From that standpoint, I think what COVID did, okay, to the population in general, is created isolation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, regardless of your age, I think people are very socially isolated.
Yeah.
I think we're coming out of it, right? But I think, being active in social things, right? Even though it may, people need to know who you are. People need to know what your value proposition are. You will feel good about that regardless of your age. And I think we sort of got away from that a little bit, right? We do too much socialization behind the screen, ironically, right? But I think, the HR 100 groups, things that you can belong to in your community, right? Professional organizations. I think those are all things that I think are really good for young people, right?
Oh, yeah.
And what's interesting is I see a lot of young people, and I would include my children in this category, that they're both professionals, but they're 8 to 5 professionals.
Yeah.
And to get them to sort of convince me, being the father and trying to mentor them, to, you need to be involved in outside activities,
right,
that you may have an interest in, but also may have a connection to your profession, right?
Yep.
From a career development standpoint. And that applies to both ends of the spectrum in age. I think we just sort of forget about that process.
Yeah, I think so. I think to your point with the different different, networking groups, there could be mentorship opportunities inside there as well. So young professional organizations, I know a lot of communities have that, different chamber of commerce. And so if you aren't in a young professionals group and you might qualify, that would be a huge way and great advantage for yourself on a brand level for somebody that may not have that opportunity within their company to find the right mentor, because you might find the people outside of your organization in those young professional groups, and who knows where that takes you within your career, gets you into other opportunities. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. And also, David, I think within an organization, I think, regardless of where you are on the spectrum of age, I think you need to make an intentional effort to make personal connections with people that are of different age in you within your organization, right? So, if you are at my age, getting involved with some of the younger groups, right? Getting involved socially with the younger people. And sometimes you have to, and I've had to do this, right? Where, you do feel sometimes excluded, right? Um, but sometimes you have to sort of interject yourself into those
Right.
groups,
Right.
because number one is you're going to find value in doing it, and hopefully they'll find value in interacting with you, right? So I
Right.
think we have to intentionally do it to make sure that we are, my challenge is, um, it's really strange because most of the people that I hang out with, right, from a social standpoint, and I work with, are younger than me, right? And it's nothing that I'm doing that's intentional. It just happens to be that way, right?
Right.
The car community I hang out with, things I do from a physical standpoint, they're all people that are at least probably 20 years, 25 years younger than me.
Right.
Right. So, and then where I'm struggling is sort of keeping connected with people that are my age.
Yeah.
Right. And relating to people that are my age. So I'm not retired. I have no intention of retiring. Right. And I just have a hard time. You and I talked about this. I just have a hard time.
Yeah.
Just sort of being in that retired couple, thing, right? And I now for me to hang out with a bunch of guys that are in their 80s, right, and talk about things they went through, oh man, I'm all over that, right?
Yeah.
Because I want to learn from them, right? So
Right.
it's making those connections across the bandwidth of age, that are important
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah. No, that's great. I'm glad you shared that. And again, there's a whole lot that you didn't cover that I think within this white paper handout that you've got can really help people learn more. And we can't get to everything on this show, but if anybody is watching, you can email Gary. I've got it at the bottom of the screen, his email address. So reach out to him. I've also got the YouTube channel for Speakeasy HR in the corner that you can scan if you want to follow on LinkedIn. If you are watching on YouTube, I will give you the link to Gary's LinkedIn as well. So scan that code to get connected to Gary. He's a great follow on LinkedIn if you are not following him. And any organization that's reevaluating their training efforts, their internal staff development, Gary is a great resource. If he doesn't do the training, he will know the right person to help your company with that training approach. So certainly reach out to Gary if you have some training needs. If you're going to be at Kentucky SHRM next week in Louisville, make sure to stop by our booth, which is, I think I had it up here before, but it's 204 and 205.
Yep.
At the Kentucky SHRM next week. You will see myself and a few others from Payroll Partners. So, Gary, is there anything else you want to add to?
Yeah, I think one thing is focus on your health. I think that's important, right? Your physical presence is important. I hate to say that we are that materialistic society, but I think whatever you can do to remain physically active and physically fit, and I think that's important to me, right?
Well, it's been a focus for yourself personally, and I think you obviously don't have a date in mind to retire, but I think you're doing very well at what you are currently involved.
You were getting ready to say you're doing really well at your age.
I stopped myself.
I know.
Stop myself.
And I get that in the classroom all the time. I always say people will say something that's like age. I go, what did you say? And it's, well, we didn't. It's not. We're not. That's not you. I go, well, okay.
You get to the gym more than I do, so hats off to you.
You're going to tell them how old I am?
I'm not gonna tell them how old you are. That's up to you. That's up to you to release.
Okay.
You can give your
I'm 70.
You are 70 years old. Well,
yes, sir.
Anybody that did not pick 70 as an age for Gary, that may surprise you, because he is definitely well equipped to be working for a long time. And, for me personally, he's been a great resource, and able to connect with him on a few different levels for training and this show. So anyways, if you're not connected with Gary on LinkedIn, His QR code is in the corner. I was checking LinkedIn just to see if there were any other comments, Gary, because the feed is not properly working. So other than Lucy, that was the main question that I saw so far.
Good deal.
So anyway, if anyone has any questions for Gary and want to reach out to him, please do. But certainly appreciate your time, Gary. It's been great to connect with you again. Here was one. For some reason now it's finally working. This platform decided to give me access now to LinkedIn's comments. So
I know Petra from Mubia.
Yep.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
He's over in Eastern Europe working now. Yeah.
Well, great.
Yep.
Very good. So anyway, if anyone has any other comments or questions, reach out, but follow on LinkedIn and YouTube for more guests. The one coming up that I'm really excited about next Monday, I've got a lot of guests coming up. Every Monday or almost every Monday for the next 3 or 4 months, I've got guests. So next Monday, I've got Bruce Waller coming on talking about moving your career beyond success to significance. So if you want to find the preview on YouTube, that QR code is right there for the preview of episode 5 next Monday. So Gary, thanks again for your time. I know you are a busy individual with all of your training initiatives and training programs. So really appreciate your time, and hopefully you can come on again and talk about a different topic. So have a great rest of your day.
Yeah. Thank you for doing this, David. You're a real gift. Thank you.
Well, thank you. It was a pleasure. And maybe we'll see each other at the gym, probably at Sherm. So
this will be hard to avoid each other there.
Yeah, right. We'll be right next to each other.
Yeah, good deal.
All right. Well,
thanks everybody.
Thanks everybody for tuning in, and have a great rest of your day, everybody.